Lindy was laying on her back, dead. Lindy Sue Biechler. Lindy Sue Little was born on January 31, 1956, to her parents Eleanor Giese and Wayne Little. Her parents separated when she was very young, but she lived with her mother Eleanor while her father Wayne remarried and had another child, Mike Little. Lindy was described as a free spirit by her half-brother Mark, and he said that she had a great work ethic. Later in her high school years, Lindy was working at a flower shop and ended up meeting a man named Philip Biechler, who attended Millersville State College and worked for Hertz Rental Cars. Lindy and Philip ended up getting married in 1975 and moving into an apartment, 104A, in the Spring Manor apartment complex in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Not long after they moved into the apartment, Lindy began telling her friends and family that she had an uneasy feeling, like she was being watched and followed. One day, Lindy was home alone when she noticed a man looking through the sliding glass door in her apartment. Ever since this incident, Lindy was nervous to be home alone, especially at night. However, she got off work when it was still light out, while her new husband, Philip, worked later into the evening, leaving Lindy home alone for a few hours, some in the darkness. On December 5, 1975, Lindy got off work, visited Philip at his job, and then went to the Millersville shopping center to get some groceries. At around 7:15 p.m., she arrived at home and unloaded her groceries. She was supposed to be home alone for the rest of the night, but her family knew that made her uncomfortable. So her Uncle Mel and Aunt Celeste invited her to join them at a basketball game they were taking their kids to that night. At around 8:45 p.m., Mel and Celeste arrived at the apartment to pick up Lindy, and Celeste went up to the front door to get her. Celeste noticed that the front door was unlocked, which she found to be unusual. But as she entered the home, she found more things that weren't quite right. She found a lamp knocked over in the living room and couldn't find Lindy anywhere, even though she was calling her name. Once Celeste made it to the kitchen, she found a horrible scene. Lindy was laying on her back, dead. Celeste called 911, and police arrived soon after. They began investigating the crime scene and couldn't find anything of value missing from the home, so the motive of robbery was quickly ruled out. There was also no evidence that the crime was sexually motivated, and there were no signs of forced entry into the home. There was evidence that Lindy had fought back desperately against her attacker, and police found a male's bloody footprint in the kitchen. According to the autopsy, Lindy had been stabbed with 2 different knives. The butcher knife, which was used, came from her kitchen, but the other knife has never been found, and police assumed that the killer brought it in himself. The medical examiner believed that the fatal stab occurred early on in the attack, but that the killer kept stabbing her in a fit of passion. Lindy's neighbors all had alibis for the time of her murder, so they were all ruled out as suspects, but that also meant that none of them had any leads or information to give police. Without any more leads, Lindy's case went cold until 2006, when it caught the attention of Vidocq Society, a volunteer group of retired professionals in forensic-related fields that aims to put new eyes on cold cases. In 2019, the case seemed to get a bit closer to being solved. DNA found at the crime scene was used to create a snapshot picture of what the killer may have looked like at ages 25 and 65. It was determined that the killer's ethnicity was Southern European, possibly mixed with Middle Eastern, and that he had dark hair and hazel eyes. Just this year, an arrest was finally made. 68-year-old David Sinopoli was arrested and charged with the murder after DNA found on Lindsay's clothes was sent to Parabon Nanolabs for genealogical testing. Investigators at Parabon identified Sinopoli as a suspect and gave his information to police, who then looked into him more. They found out that he had, at one point, lived in the same apartment complex that Lindy did at the time of her murder. Police were able to extract a sample of David's DNA from a coffee cup he threw away, and when they tested it against the DNA found at the crime scene, a match was made. Even though a DNA match was made, David is currently still being held without bond, awaiting a conviction.